Now we are, like a number of schools, we are getting tables, the 6-foot kind of banquet tables. We're going to have a lot of outside eating opportunities, weather permitting. I don't want to say the school, but basically, the superintendent told me, as long as it's over 30 degrees and not raining, the kids are eating outside. So we're going to be very creative. We will have outside eating opportunities. A lot of kids at the high school, kind of do eat outside in that small area. We're just going to increase that footprint. At the elementary, the lunch will be in the classrooms, but you will have double the number of students unmasked. We understand that. We will have the barrier. And again, please don't, I say just because of a lack of a better term, the plastic barriers. The barriers we'll be getting are regulated for schools. So please don't hang on my words when I use the word plastic or plexiglass. These are going to be approved material that is see-through for a school setting. So the barriers will be in all classrooms, all cafeteria spaces, all learning spaces. The transportation, and that will all be worked out. So some routes might change, some times might change, but they've been fantastic, Kathy McCulloch and her staff. So they will share with parents well before this change to the 4 days of in-person instruction, what, if any, changes there will be to their child's bus routes. And understand, though, we're going to have larger number of students. It could lead to larger number of people needing to quarantine if we do have positive exposure, because as we know, the positive exposure is still occurring. Okay. Now the impact, once we go to this 4 days of instruction, simultaneously, the remote students will go from 3 days of instruction to 5 days of remote instruction. And I absolutely understand why many of the remote parents were upset about this inequity. There was an inequity. I agree. That should have been rectified. But earlier, we did review all of the schedules. We reviewed the master schedule, and we are able to work it out. And it will not have a negative impact on the students' schedules, but we did have to work hard to make that change. So this will happen at the same time again. So it's not going to happen before. This will all happen at the same time. It has to happen at the same time because of the way the schedules work and the teachers that we're using. So grades K through 5, you will see changes to related service schedules, just of when they get them. Grades 6 through 8, remote only students, you're going to see changes to your special area classes. Again, just like the hybrid. So those special areas, art, tech, PE, you're going to see some changes. It might be a teacher, but more than normal, it will be the time of the day or the day it's given. And again, as I said, this will begin simultaneously when the hybrid students move to 4 days a week. So to recap, now we mentioned this last week, and the meeting just went very long and we kind of glossed over it. We still have the ability, if the board decides, but we have to decide tonight. Remember, we can bring in the current hybrid kindergartners 4 days a week, starting next Monday, without the barriers, because their numbers are that low that they will still be 6 feet apart. So if the board so chooses, we can bring the current hybrid kindergartners back on Monday, but we need to know tonight because there is work that has to be done. Or they could wait, if we choose, till after the break, the Monday the 5th. Now, there's a number of things hinging on when we can move to this 4 days of instruction for the hybrid and 5 days for the all remote. And that does hinge on getting in the plastic barriers, getting them put together, installed, pulling all the furniture out of storage, putting it together, cleaning, getting in the rooms. So we're not saying this is going to happen April 5th. I just don't want to cut it that close. So we're shooting for April 12th or 19th to begin this 4 days of in-person instruction for the hybrid students and 5 days of remote instruction for remote-only students. Again, speaking to the 8 superintendents in Ulster County, everyone is looking for at those same dates, either the 12th or the 19th. We just don't want to promise the 5th and not be able to do it. So that lends to questions and discussion. Again, I want to thank the principals, the directors. So a lot of work went into this. I thank the parents and the guardians for working with us so positively all year long. I thank the parents for all the emails I've received, a lot of thank yous and a lot of suggestions and a handful of, hey, Bon Jovi, I'm not so happy with you right now. I understand and I appreciate all those comments, and we're here to serve you. And I think we've put together, I'm confident we put together an excellent plan that can be implemented and successful for our students and district.
I just want to echo the same comments from the superintendent. Again, I personally want to thank, and I think the entire board wants to thank our superintendent, assistant superintendent, and all our administrators for all their hard work and everything they've done from last March to today. I mean, it's unheard of. It's something that hasn't hit our nation or our lifetime. So every step that's being taken is a new adventure, and hopefully moving forward with bringing students back in small steps, we can achieve what we've been hoping for since last March. So I think tonight for the entire board, we have a few decisions we need to make. I think the first one would be the March 22nd date of bringing back our hybrid kindergartners, begin a 4-day in-person attendance, and then bringing the rest of our hybrid students back to a 4-day in-person and our remote students to 5 days of remote, beginning April 12th or the 19th. Just one clarification on that, Mr. Bon Jovi. If the board elects for April 12th, the district would strive for that date in case something happens to our barriers, then we would move to
the 19th. Yes, we can strive for the 12th, absolutely. And we would know, I'm sure, well before that, whether we're going to hit that date or not, if we needed more time. Right. But we can strive for the 12th.
And just to echo again a comment that Mr. Bon Jovi said a short while ago, and I've seen this in some of the emails. Whatever decision the board makes this evening, there's going to be those that are going to be in favor of our decision and those that dislike our decision. It's inevitable. We have to go one way or the other. So whichever decision that this board makes, I know we're not going to have everyone in this community in support of it, but we have to move forward. And I think that's what this evening is all about. And hopefully we work through this and eventually get back to some normalcy. And I hope that happens soon than later. And one other, before I turn it over to the rest of the board to speak, one other comment I want to make. During this pandemic and even current, we need every parent out there and every guardian to be vigilant in your social gatherings with other students, other families, your protective PPE. Make sure that you still follow those guidelines. Even though some of you might be vaccinated, does not mean you cannot transmit the virus. So we want that to be understood to all our parents. Please maintain for a few months more, the social gatherings, keep them to a real minimum. Don't allow some of the high school students to be able to go out and have that social gathering in your backyard or wherever, because it's only going to lead to some issues. And we've seen it currently with our sports program. And I truly don't believe that a lot of the transmission has been generated from within the school setting. It's coming from outside the school setting and being brought into it. So please, please be vigilant in maintaining, low-key social gatherings or none at all. We have 2.5 more months of school. Please adhere to that. We appreciate that. Thank you. I now would like to open it up to the rest of the board for any comments as far as the presentation.
Yeah, I would like to just thank superintendent, assistant superintendent, and all of administration for really doing the due diligence, going through what you have. I know, it's definitely a tough environment, right? Things are changing as soon as we hear them, and we're trying to investigate things as fast as we can. So, appreciate the communication that's been going on and the transparency for sure. Just one quick question that I have, just curious about the barriers. Have we ordered them, or do we have an order ready to go kind of once this decision is made?
No, those are ordered because I wanted to jump, because I knew everyone was ordering them. We could have, if we
Right.
decided, if we weren't going to do this, we could have canceled the order or returned them. So they are ordered. And at the moment, they're saying that they'll be in, sometime late next week.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I just want to also just echo the thanks. I know last couple of weeks, we've heard a lot about the remote learners and that experience. We're just happy to see that we were able to find a solution to have them there, to have 5 days of instruction for them. I'm just curious with the schedule changes, what's the timeline, whether we start April 12th or April 19th, that we could let families and students know about any changes to their schedule?
So maybe I'll let the principals jump in. I don't want to give the wrong answer. Mr. Zimmer, we'll start with you. What is your?
Good evening, everyone. At the high school level, the changes to the schedule will be so minimal that they really won't affect the schedule at all. To put it simply, we're currently, as it stands, the 2 days a week that the hybrid students are in school right now. One day they go to PE and another day they go to science lab, flip-flops. With the addition of 2 more days, we have to add a day of PE and add a day of lab. Currently, the days they have at home, it's just an empty period. They don't go to PE or lab on those asynchronous days. So we're just adding 1 more day PE, 1 more day of lab. So for a 4-day week, they'll have 2 days of science lab and 2 days of PE. So the changes itself are minimal. They probably don't even need a new schedule. We will give them one, but so minimal that anyone listening who has a high school student or the students probably understand exactly what I'm talking about, that we're just plugging in 1 more day of PE and 1 more day of lab. Minimal changes.
Mr. Judge, how about the middle school?
Excuse me, at the middle school, it would, for that time frame, have to happen over a weekend. All of the changes have to be made in the live version of School Tool, not in a different version and imported. So it would need to be done during that time frame, but it could be made live on Parent Portal for parents to see over the weekend once all of the changes have been made, and students would receive a new schedule when they enter the building.
Right, so there's probably, because of the way School Tool works, you can't just change, it's all live. So if you change it, while students are still going to their school, it's going to change the whole schedule. So the changes that have to be made will be done like over a weekend. So that would be on like the 10th and 11th, maybe after school Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday. And then as soon as they're done, we can make it live. So again, so parents, if they have the portal, would be able to view that. So we would encourage anyone who does not have the parent portal, that gives you plenty of time to sign up for parent portal, so that you would get a heads up. And then when they come in Monday, every student at the middle school will get a hard copy also. And the teachers will make sure that first period teacher will take time to go over the student's schedule so they understand the schedule and what changes have been made. And then elementary school.
our students would follow their regular classroom schedule, and we would collapse the cohorts into the 4 days of in-person learning. So they would stay with the teacher that they're assigned with right now. The remote students at the elementary school have been receiving 5 days of instruction, so their schedules would not change. The only big change that I could see is right now, typically on a Monday, we may have an A day, and on Tuesday, we have an A day. I wouldn't need to repeat the letter days, so I would go back to just the traditional run the letter days, 1 letter per day of the week. And, parents are used to the letter days, students are used to the letter days. So that instead of having it over 2 days, it would just be collapsed down to 1. And I would reflect that on the district website, on our calendar. All my letter days have been up there for the whole year. So parents are used to looking at the calendar and seeing those letter days. And the only schedules that would change could be our related service schedules, but those change sometimes throughout the school year. If a child tests into AIS or tests out of AIS, if we decide they need a related service like OT or PT, those schedules are much more fluid just on a regular given year. So I think folks are used to having those schedules fluctuate. The AIS schedules will definitely need some adjusting because right now all my AIS is done remotely. So fitting that in, it's going to look a little bit like September for a week or two until those AIS providers can get everyone plugged in, because those classes for in-person would be pullout sessions with the AIS providers.
Mr. Bon Jovi, without the ability at the middle school to give advance notice kind of on those schedule changes prior to the weekend before, I know we said there are some students who, a very limited number of students who will have changes to their core class teachers. Would we be able to ensure that we have communication with those students and those families prior to that weekend right before?
Yes, Mr. Judge, yes.
Yes, our plan is any student that is going to see a change in one of their cores that we would reach out to those parents directly.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's just
Thank you.
important as it
Yeah.
is a bigger change.
If nobody else is going, I just wanted to share my thoughts and where my support is. My support is for 4 days of instruction, returning to that model. I understand that Wednesday would probably continue to be a full remote day. I'm supportive of further modification to that day if needed, whether it's faculty planning or concerns about screen time. I'm supportive of possibly reducing some of the schedule on that day. I know it's already modified, but even further modification if needed or desired. I think I'm good with the target date of the 12th with 19th as a backup. Got to have things in place. We want to phase it in correctly. And the other, beyond that, one of the vulnerable populations I've been concerned about are those full remote students who are not doing well, and possibly reaching out to some of those students and making that switch. I know that in the numbers, there wasn't really a big change there. But if your student is not passing in a full remote schedule, there is a duty on behalf of the school to offer something else that may work for that child. So just a consideration there.
Can I speak to that quickly? Because I know at the elementary school, and I believe the other schools are in a similar position, if teachers are noticing that a child is not performing, we have wrapped around those children and offered them supports, provided it for the families. And we've actually gone so far as, within the parents' comfort level, talk to them and encourage them to have the child come back to school so that they could get live instruction. And I know at the elementary school, we've been successful with a number of families just in the last few weeks since we've been talking about the 4-day back in person, we've been able to get some of those students back in school. Not just the ones that were struggling, but other students as well, when we started talking about the 4-day week. So I do think that is work that the teachers are doing, and they should be commended for it.
I appreciate, Joel. That was definitely a time to speak up. I feel better
Thanks, Joel.
hearing about that and knowing that that dialogue takes place all across the level. So I appreciate that, and I'm sure we all do. Listen, a year ago, it was the county who closed us down. That's where it came from. It did come from the state, but it was the county communication. And we have now received county communication to begin opening us back up. And I do believe that we need to work towards that effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to mention that I am also in favor of going back to 4-day in person and the 5-day remote, with the 4-day having Wednesday as their all remote day. I'm also like to encourage us to move forward with the kindergarten on March 22nd to come in 4 days a week. And when Mike asked that question about support, and I looked around, I saw all three and even our assistant principals nodding their head yes. So I appreciate that we're reaching out to our students in need, those that are struggling a bit. But I would also like to encourage to continue that that program of trying to reach out. And if the district needs to add resources, I'm sure from the board level through our superintendent and assistant superintendent, we will be able to find some resources to help those struggling students through the end of the school year. And I think that's much needed. It's something that I've been hearing all around. I know some former teachers are doing tutoring because of some struggling students. So whatever we can do to help those students, I encourage it. And if the district needs to support that with any type of resource, I'm sure this board will be open to that.
Great.
I too am in favor of the return to the 4-day and the 5-day for remote students as well. I also encourage, kindergarten is a huge year, and obviously this has been a very trying year for those kindergartners. And I think it would be beneficial for them to be in the building before kind of the return of all other hybrid students. So I would encourage the 22nd as well.
Tom and Sarah, I would like to thank you both for all the work and our entire administrative team has put into getting us to this point and basically being as equitable as we can. This is a win-win for both groups of students. So I'm looking forward to kindergartners coming back a little bit sooner. I know we can put a very safe product out there in the buildings, and we have an excellent buildings and ground team and all our custodial staff. I'm sure everybody will be pitching in to affect all these changes. I, again, would like to see the kindergartners come back earlier at the earliest date possible. And I was wondering if a building is ready before the 12th or on the 12th, could we bring, if maybe another building isn't, could we bring the one building back on the 12th and bring the other one back on the 19th? Are we going to be working our staff overtime a little later, coming on a weekend, if we need to make a push and get these buildings ready? I would support doing that if we deem that possible.
Yeah, no, it would have to be all at the same time. But I'm confident that we should be able to hit the 12th. Okay.
Well, that's good. I'm just trying to throw something out so
Okay.
we didn't hold somebody back and their building was ready. Thank you.
So thank you.
Yeah, I'm in favor of bringing the kindergartners back for the same reason that Heather mentioned, to have that time before the rest of the students are there 4 days. I'm also in favor of the 4 days a week and the April 12th start date, if that's possible. And just a question that I had was thinking about outdoor lunches. Do we have maybe enough tents or tables, or make sure that we have those?
Yeah, we're ordering tables. We have the chairs already. We're ordering the tables, those banquet tables. So we'll have them kind of the sturdy but light tables.
Ed, you want to go?
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, I think it's great for our kids to have more contact time with the teachers. I think it'd be a very good thing in that regard. It hinges on us upholding the safety precautions that we're putting forward. I think it sounds like we're doing our best, which is all we can do. I think it's very important. I don't, in the schools, the teachers, the administration, the buildings are all going to try and maintain that level of safety. I hope, and I do impress upon the families, as President Barone said in the beginning, that there's a huge onus on them to remember we're in a community and try and respect that community and maintain that distance and the potting just for this brief time. And hopefully we can keep each other safe, because it is a step forward. There's going to be bigger risks. And while we can do what we can at the district and in the buildings, it's also going to be relying on the community at large to respect, even if you don't feel it's something that the people your children are associating with may have cautions that you need to respect as well. And I hope we can all do that as a community.
Thank you, Mr. Mizell. Very well put.
Ed, that was a very good point. I can't say it any better. I agree with all my colleagues. I just have a few follow-up questions. When you say that the remote can be brought 5 days a week, so that means synchronous learning 5 days a week for all 3 buildings, correct?
Correct.
Okay. If I were a hybrid student where I'm one of those 76 students, I want to stay 2 days synchronous, 2 days asynchronous, and 1 day remote, will I see any changes to my schedule?
So a hybrid, unfortunately, you can't have too many different schedules out there. Okay. So if a student is currently hybrid, but wants to stay only coming in 2 days, you can't. You either,
Okay, so
you
that's
either
off
you
the table.
have to come in the 4 days, and if you don't want that, then you'd have to switch to all remote.
Okay, okay.
Because
misunderstood.
schools across the state, anyone who's allowed that,
Okay.
it's just becomes a fiasco. And what happens is this, what they have experienced, and I'm sure we would experience, it's almost impossible to, with your attendance, to know who is there. And students, this is more at the secondary level, the older they get, they start to pick and choose which days they decide to come in person. And well, I'm supposed to come in on Monday, on Thursday, but I'm tired. I'm going to Zoom in today. You can't have that. The teacher's not going to be able to keep track.
Okay, and the other 48 children or students as well, correct? They will have to choose. There was something with grades 6 to 12 with 48 students. They had.
Sarah, I just want to make sure I'm not saying the wrong thing. 48, same thing, right? That's
right. Basically, there's 2 options. You can either be all remote, or you can come in 4 days a week for in-person.
Okay. So we have approximately over about 115 students who are going to have to make a choice, correct?
correct.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and the last, well, that, yeah.
Actually, Sue,
Oh,
we
yes,
actually might have more than that because not everybody returned the survey.
right. That was going to be my other follow-up question. If we see a big shift between those that are deciding to stay remote versus, now that we're announcing all these changes, could we see more changes in schedules? Let's say that there's 70 remote students. Okay, well, we're going to go to the 4 days. Could we potentially see even more changes to the schedule? And vice versa?
It depends on the grade and the course. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Freer, so at the elementary school, if you had a lot of remote people who wanted to come in. It depends on if it's a particular grade, and I don't want to mention any particular grade, but if it's a particular grade, then that section would be too big. And
Correct.
they might have to be moved to another section of a live instruction. So it could happen. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the point that I was making last week. If I have two remote sections at a grade level and a large number of students decide to come back hybrid from one of those remote sections, it would not be fiscally prudent to have those two remote
Right.
sections
Right.
unless the board wanted to hire additional teachers to be able to manage those new students in the hybrid model that would be coming out of remote.
Right. Okay.
You could obviously, you could say you want to do that, but that would probably not be the
Okay.
way you'd want to go.
So right now, we're seeing about 115 students who are going to be making a choice. And then, okay, all right. So we might see more changes down the pike in schedules.
But I do
Awesome.
believe we've been struggling with this aspect all year. Whenever someone wants to move from remote to hybrid or vice versa, we always run the risk that a class is going to become too large. For instance, I had one primary level class that had 29 students in it. When I had more parents wanting to go to that, I had to have some difficult conversations with those parents that it would not be in their child's best interest, other than the safety thing that they would bring out, to put them into that class at that point, because they might have been going from a class of 16 where only 8 of them came in on one day, 8 on the other, to a class of 30.
Right.
And at the primary level, kudos to that teacher that's been teaching at that level and keeping those kids engaged. That is almost impossible to teach primary level students to read when you have 30 faces.
Right.
Just imagine trying to teach all these faces
No.
how to read when they're might be slightly below reading level.
So what's
So-
your comfortable max, Joel, for a remote? Your max, what's your comfortable number?
I'm not really sure what,
The number of students in a remote setting for one class, what's your,
well,
Like-
we contractually, we can go to 30. And
okay,
we've been at 29 in one class,
okay,
28 in kindergarten at one point. But with those classes, I added additional, I did add some teaching assistant support, as I mentioned earlier in the school year, to help support those teachers. But optimal in a remote class, I wouldn't like to see, quite honestly, more than 15. But that's
yeah,
not
that's
possible
that's
when we're
not
talking
possible.
this large number, so.
But-
Obviously,
So-
I would not like to see any student in remote. I would like to see them all back face to face, getting instruction the way we know instruction is the best.
And I would imagine your feelings are the same, Ryan? The 30 is a little bit too much?
I,
15,
it's kind of hard to do that because all the different schedules are so different, and what, what we might need for one content area versus another content area. You might have one class that has 35 just because of the way it goes, but another class, so it's kind of difficult to say what you're comfortable with, I guess. We don't want
So-
promises.
okay, so we're seeing a reality of 30 on a remote class.
Potentially, but
Yeah.
there's others that have 10, it just depends on the situation.
All right, just so I see what's
And
going on.
optimal is also based on the developmental levels of students. The younger the students are, the more individualized attention they will need. At a secondary level, where maybe everyone's at a Regents level, reading level, they may be able to have more in that type of a setting because the students can work on their own. Whereas at elementary and that lower primary, there's a lot of face-to-face that the teacher has to try to replicate in a remote model, and it's very difficult to do.
Thank you, everyone.
Just a reminder to all those participants, we are not taking any live updates from or responses from the community. So this is basically going to be a decision based on the Board of Education. And if anybody has any comments, you can email them to our district clerk, and we'll read those at the end of the meeting and open public comment section. Thank you. Everyone has responded, so I think the decision has.
I have just from a student
Farah,
perspective,
go ahead.
Oh, Farah has a question, Mr. Barone.
Go ahead, Farah.
just to grant a student perspective, we are very appreciative of the plan and thought that's going into this reopening plan, but also from what I've been gathering from fellow seniors and juniors, or the people I go back to school with, we're kind of not ready to go in 4 days a week, especially on the mental health aspect of it. Going from 2 days a week and then just going to 4 days a week sounds it's kind of overwhelming for us in a way. And regarding the surveys that were passed out to parents, we just wish there was more student interaction. Maybe there should have been polls on Schoology, how do you feel about going into this plan, and more interaction with the students.
Thank you, Farah.
Thanks, Farah.
Can I just, based off what Farah just said, will there be plans just to transition kids back? Some virtual, sessions, there's different activities just to kind of bring kids in, so you're not just jumping in for the first week and it's like nothing ever happens, almost like the modified first day of school or first week of school. That might help with some of those concerns for the kids.
Hi, Mr. Zimmer, did you want to just address that a little bit? When the students are coming back, we can ease them in. We can make sure the teachers, kind of like Mrs. Doma said, almost like the beginning of the school year, those first couple of days, like we said when we started this year, that the first couple of days are going to be a little bit more kind of working on the mental health and easing them into the routine.
We can absolutely do that. We can absolutely, I would advise the teachers to treat it like the opening of school, like we did in October this year. I don't think we'll be able to phase them in as we did, obviously,
right, no.
But we can approach it in a way that we could ease them in and get them more acclimated to being back in school 4 days a week.
I would also say that we are, I do thank Farah for sharing that. I think it's important to hear from the student body. We're also talking about a month away. So it's not like it's next week or the following week even, and we have a break in between. So I'm sure we can make preparations for meeting the student need.
And the one thing that I could add on behalf of the elementary school, the elementary students, at least the kindergarten, they are ready. They have been speaking with their teachers. They meet with them on Zoom on Wednesdays. They all know one another. Cohort 1 is looking forward to meeting cohort 2. So I think at that level, they're ready to come in and meet the people that they've only seen on the screen. I think the other grade levels, they've been already starting to have those conversations on those remote Wednesdays. And so again, those are old friends that haven't seen each other, only except through digital platforms. I think most of them are probably ready to come back and see their friends in person. It will look different, and they've all known that because here there are no masks. So the kindergarten teachers have already done a really good job before we even brought the students in of showing them what the mask looks like when they came to school. So lots of those activities are already in the works. Again, kudos to the teachers because they thought of doing that before any of us brought it to the forefront.
Thank you, Joel. Is there any other comments?
I would just add that our mental health staff will be mindful of this. So thank you for sharing that, Farah. And they'll be starting to have those conversations over the next couple of weeks, and we'll be ready during that first week as we start to bring more students in to address any of the concerns that students might be having.
Thank you, Patrick. Anybody else? Just one quick one for Kathy. I was going to bring it up under our directors. With transportation, I noticed that we are down 7 full-time bus drivers. Is that going to impact the transportation of both the additional students coming back and our sports program?
So yes, we are down 7 full-time positions. Tonight, we're asking to hire 2 more back, and hopefully with the way we set up routing, we will be successful.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Beth.
Okay, if there's no more questions or comments, we will close this special presentation. And I think everybody should be somewhat excited moving forward with bringing students back and providing more remote instruction to those that are all remote. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barone.
Okay, we'll move into our regular board meeting. Acceptance of reports. Be it resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, acknowledges reviewing and accepting the following reports that is presented at this meeting. Our claims audit report, February 2021, and our treasurer's report, February 2021. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Ed, second by Sue. Discussion?
Yeah, Don, I had a couple questions on the regular treasurer's report. On page 11, there's some negative unencumbered. And also on page 1 and 2 of the special aid, there's some negative unencumbered. And the last question I have, there is something I haven't seen. There's a special revenue section, and it's offset by gifts and donations. I don't understand what that is. Thanks.
Okay, in regard to the first series of questions, it all relates to the CARE Act. The district received, I'm not sure exactly how much money, I think it was around $400,000 or $500,000, which offset a state aid that the state held back. We're required to account separately. So what you're seeing with the negatives is a timing issue. We had to move expense that had occurred in one line to another line. We didn't have the money in there until the transfer took place, and that's in item number 10. And then the revenue is there to offset it. Okay, so that would take care of both the general fund and the special aid fund. Okay, and what was your other question?
You're muted, Sue. You're muted, Sue.
I'm sorry. There was something in the treasurer's report. It said, maybe this is also related to the CARES Act. It said special revenues and it offset by something that said gifts and donation, many line items, gifts and donations.
That one I'm gonna have to look into, I'm not sure.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? So carried, 7-0. Under curriculum and instruction, our principals report. Joel, you're up.
Well, good evening again. I want to just highlight on my principal's report. I gave you tentative plans for our 5th grade moving up plans for this year. Again, looking similar to last year's plans. Under the current guidance, we would have a drive-through situation, which parents seemed to love last year. The students really loved that it was not as formal. So we are moving forward with that plan at this point. Just to draw your attention, the Clink Challenge ends this coming weekend. I know I told everyone March 31st, but March 31st is actually the day that they're going to determine who the winner is. So they're now asking that everything get turned in by March 28th. So a little sneaky that they changed that language after we put out all of our press, but hopefully we still do well with that. Today, from the State Education Department, we received, and this may be in Sarah's report, so apologize if I'm stealing your thunder here, Sarah. We did receive information about the New York State assessments, the assessments for grades 3 through 8. So 3 through 5 in my building and 6 through 8 at the middle school. They will be shorter in length. They will be 1 day. No field test questions will be embedded in those assessments. They've extended the window. So what was on my report saying that the ELA was April 21st to 22nd, that has now changed, and we can administer the test on a rotating schedule. We don't have to do the whole school at the same time. We don't have to do the whole grade level at the same time. We can do those tests between April 19th and April 29th. So they're giving us a 10-day window to give the ELA. The math is May 3rd to May 14th. And a change with the New York State science test. Used to have a performance piece, which is like a lab where the kids would go and they would manipulate things. But obviously under COVID, they've taken that piece out. That will only be a written test for both 4th grade and 8th grade. And I think that's all I have in addition to my report. I do have one question. Did you vote to bring kindergarten back next Monday? Because my phone is blowing up because they did not hear that we said we're doing that definitely.
Yes, they did.
Perfect.
And we will get that out first thing in the morning on all modes. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any questions for Joel?
Yeah, Joel, where do we drop this clink stuff off? I try to get, so I finally have a bag of clink. Where do I?
Okay.
Yeah.
So go to the Hannaford parking lot and stand at the front door and look back to 9W and you will see a shed. You take it to the shed, you scan the barcode that is on the bag, the door will beep, you open it and you put it inside. Or you can just bring it to me at the elementary school and I will return it for you. Thank you.
Hey, Joel, I was wondering, is there a way to share the images that you attached to your report? The work
Oh,
that-
actually, yes. Thank you for saying that. I did submit images. Thank you, Mr. Darling. He ran around and got pictures of those to submit so board members could see what the murals look like. I don't have the ability to share from here, but maybe
I'm looking.
Sarah.
Yeah, let me see if I can. I should.
Yeah, and I echo that. That work was fantastic. I thought it really brightens up the school for sure.
Definitely.
Agree.
All
Great.
right, so give me a minute to see if I can find it in my email.
If she can't share it here, we are planning to share it on the website. The issue was we were just getting the last ones hung the other day. So all of those images will be uploaded to the website and probably to the Facebook page so that everyone can see them there. We're going to do that regardless if she's able to get that up on the screen today.
Any other questions for Joel? Thank you, Joel. When you
Thank
have them up, Sarah, if you do, just let us know. Ryan?
Good evening, everyone. I have 2 very brief updates from my principal's report. I would like to thank all of the students in both peer leadership and National Junior Honor Society who have done a really phenomenal job collecting clothes for a clothing drive for those less fortunate living in a shelter, as well as collecting food items for those in need right in Highland. They did a really phenomenal job with that. And right now, some of our Honor Society students are also going to be assisting Mr. Fear in the elementary school with the Clink program by doing a contest between grade levels to try to boost up the amount that we can get donated to Clink for the elementary school, but also to inform students about the importance of recycling.
Thank you. Any questions for Ryan?
I did find that document, so if you give me a minute, I'll share my screen so people can see.
Okay.
All right. So Joel, do you want to give, or Matt, do you
Well,
want?
maybe Mr. Darling can speak about it because he really did spearhead this program, if he's okay with that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Mr. Freer and Sarah. So just looking through these images, the first few are based off of that mentor text that we had utilized in K2 called I Am Enough by Grace Byers. And so students in kindergarten there, you can see they created this flower image where all the students' pictures were printed out and glued on there. And then they basically came up with self-affirmations that, you know, represent the petals of the flower. And then moving down to first grade, they all created a self-portrait. And again, they had some self-affirmations on there about things that they were proud about themselves. And Sarah, if you want to continue to scroll down. So the top image there is second grade. And, you know, again, a similar concept there, going off of I Am Enough as the mentor text. And then the third through fifth grade had gone and done the collaborative posters. And so there's a Kobe Bryant one and Booker T. Washington. And basically, as we had discussed a couple board meetings ago, the classes, each student colored and cut out one square of those posters and then worked together as a class to piece them together to kind of create these images. So there were actually one or two of those posters that were done by some of the remote sections that had shown interest. So that was pretty cool to see. And we hadn't planned on that initially, that they were able to color them digitally and then send them to us and we could print them out. And then the other remote sections were able to submit some more traditional PowerPoint, you know, presentations and some written responses that we could print and hang in the hallway as well. So definitely a lot of positive feedback there from the students and teachers.
That looks fantastic.
Fantastic. Very nice.
Thank you for sharing that. I like that flower, but all of them are great.
No, you could take this for a gallery down in New York. This is awesome.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get this on Twitter and Facebook or make a little slideshow out of it, right?
Absolutely.
Did an excellent job. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Joel, for that.
Thank you.
Okay, was there any other questions for Ryan? I know we cut him short with that. Okay, Bill, you're up.
Hi, everyone. Thursday, June 24th, high school graduation. We're planning on it, of course. In accordance with the current Ulster County Department of Health guidelines, we're planning to hold graduation similar to the ones we had last year. Last year, we had to break it up into 3 separate ceremonies, alphabetically by students, and each graduate was able to bring 2 guests. This year, we think under current guidelines, as they stand, we'll be able to do it in 2 separate ceremonies. So half the class in one ceremony, and the second half the class, the other half of the class in the other second ceremony, and they'll be divided by the graduates' last names. Again, attendance under current guidelines, attendance will be limited to our graduates and 2 guests each, and they'll be seated together on the field, socially distanced from other families. Our ceremony, as it was last year, will have many traditional elements of a Highland High School graduation with some needed adjustments, of course. All ceremonies will be live streamed so they can be viewed by anyone remotely. And we will, of course, adjust our plans if the guidelines do change in the county. Also, as we start to approach the end of the school year, we at the high school do realize that the typical senior class events cannot happen as usual. Assistant Principal Murphy and I have met with both the senior class officers and senior class advisors. We are currently exploring options to celebrate the class of 2021 while still adhering to guidelines set forth by the Ulster County Department of Health. Possibilities include a modified graduation walk, senior class picnic, possibly a day trip for the senior class somewhere, not sure where yet, and perhaps what I like to call the girls' football game, but what has traditionally been called powder puff football. We're looking at being able to do that again this year without any spectators. However, we can live stream it for all to see. I do look forward to reporting these out as we're able to firm up plans as we move forward. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Zimmer?
Thank
Okay.
you.
We'll move on to our director's report. Does anyone have any questions or concerns for our directors? Comments?
Yeah, I have some questions. Karen, I see that you have met with the teachers in regard to the math benchmark. Would we be able to see any results of the math benchmarks?
Karen was on.
Aaron Brooks,
Yes.
you on?
Oops, can you hear me? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
I hit the wrong button, sorry. I gave reports for the benchmark 1. I believe that was 2 reports ago. Right now we have benchmark 2 coming back in. So hopefully next month we should have some results for benchmark 2.
Oh, the year's almost over. Yeah. Okay.
And we also have STAR finished. I could probably give you that by next board report.
Carol, you had written that you and Patrick were working on the tech needs for most at risk students. Could you expand upon that? How it's going and maybe a little
Well,
more detail? How many?
I continue to get reports on students. We look at all of our records and we can see if they're logging on to their Chromebooks. And I try to reach out to the parents to see if they have any issues. I make sure their access points are working. We give them access points. And so far, I get a pretty good response from the parents, just trying to help them. Usually it's just something in their life, but I just try to reach out and make sure the tech is working. If it's not, we make arrangements to swap out the technology. And it can be for any reason. It doesn't matter if they feel it's not working, we give them something newer. And it seems to work pretty well. I've been helping some parents that are going to maybe an out of school placement. They have maybe some issues with what that school wants on the device. So I work with the school and the parent to try to make them understand and get it all working. Just trying to do something to make sure the tech is working.
Okay.
I just want to give thanks to Carol on that. She spends a lot of time coordinating with some of our out of district programs. So finding out, what the issue is on their end, working closely with the parent, phone calls, personal meetings. So a lot of thanks to her and her department for help coordinating for some of those families.
Yep.
Thank you,
It
Carol.
must be incredibly challenging. I couldn't even begin to imagine. And lastly, Kathy McCulloch, thank you so much for getting that little bit of information on the electric buses. I sincerely appreciate it, but maybe it's just something we can think about in the future as the technology increases.
Right.
Yep, no problem.
Thanks, Kathy.
I have just a few questions as well for Maria in terms of the, how we have the food programs this year, that they are, free lunches and free breakfasts. What is the reimbursement mechanism for that? Is that from the state or federal?
It comes from both. Every year we get a schedule. The majority of it does come from the federal government. But the nice thing about this year is that they're giving the free reimbursement rate for all meals that we sell. So even if a student is a paid status, they're getting a free meal and we're getting the reimbursement back at the free rate.
Okay.
So say your free reimbursement is $3.25. Normally a paid student would come in with $3.25 because that's what our price is. And then we might get like another 25 cents from the federal and state. So now I'm getting that up front.
So we've seen that come in all throughout the year. Is that correct?
Yes. Our lunch counts are down this year. So,
Yeah.
Once all the kids get back and maybe get in the swing of things, they'll increase.
And the timeline for that was that just extended again? It's definitely throughout the rest of the school year, right?
Yeah, and into the summer.
Okay.
So we're all waiting for our child nutrition representatives to start talking to us.
Okay, great. And then just a question for Mr. Miller regarding, I see we do have some open positions. Is it that we have not, are those open positions one that we receive listings for? And have we gotten those listings? Just curious.
Couple of them are civil service and some of them are not, and we are currently filling the non-civil service ones.
Okay. In terms of the civil service ones, we are not looking to fill them right now?
Well, in some of them, we already have people that are acting in those positions.
Okay.
We have gotten no list to fill with because no tests have been issued.
Okay. Okay. And then just one question for Karen for data. I saw that you noted that you're working through the NYSAA and there's only one student that's taken that. Would you be able just to provide some information just in terms of what that is, and are there other students that should be or qualified to take it who aren't?
The NYSAA is the New York State Alternative Assessment, and it's really for the kids that are life skills type students that are, and we only have one student in district taking that right now.
Okay, thank you.
A question for our directors?
Yeah, I have a few questions here. First one goes to special ed. Pat, talk to us, what can that new continuous eligibility possibly do for us? How could that positively impact program?
Are you talking about for the teacher certification?
Yes.
Actually, it can be more limiting rather than helping us. What it does is if there's a special class at the secondary level, you either have to have a certification in the subject area and special education, or there's a rubric that you have to follow. So in a sense, teachers can get grandfathered into it where, you know, if you've taught a special class in math for a certain number of years, you can get the points you can continue to do that. And then you have to apply for it through the state to say, okay, I can teach a special class in math at the secondary level.
Are some of these limitations why we see a high concentration of special ed teachers with a sixth period?
No, that hasn't gone into effect yet. So basically more for the 6 periods is based on just scheduling and student need. So this was supposed to go into effect last year, June 30th, but they postponed it because of everything, because there was trainings that any teacher that is applying for it has to have certain trainings. Some of them had them in the past because of their certification. Some of them did not. So they postponed it till June 30th of this year. And then they actually give a little bit more time for people to complete some of the requirements.
All right. Okay. I've been having some thoughts about between the 8 and 9 period day. I know we still have students who don't have lunch or are limited in choices because of the 8 period day. And we continue to kind of kick that around. So I appreciate that. Thank you for that. Transportation, I want to hear more about that electric bus. So it's a big cost, right? 340,000, if I read that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
And what's a regular bus cost?
Couple
$200,000?
140, approximately.
140.
Approximately, yes. Depending if you want a 30 passenger or the 66.
And what's the useful life of an electric bus over a other bus?
Okay, so that I did not find out because it does run on batteries. So I would find out more details. I only got the beginning stages of what an electric bus does. Right now, we do not qualify for any grants on that bus.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I can get more information to the board.
I'm just curious if there's a longer useful life. Is there lower maintenance? Like we see the sticker price. And that's a bit of a shock.
It is shocking, yes.
Absolutely.
Lack of a better term.
However, we also know that this is one of the highest aid categories that we have. So I'm just looking for some of the other value adds or value negatives as we do a little more research. Does the bus last twice as longer? Is there just less maintenance on the fleet? What are some of those other components? I'm just curious.
So because it's such a new product, I don't believe they have all that information
Right.
compiled. So I can research from people that know a little bit about it. I did speak to New York Bus Sales, who we deal with, and I also spoke to Matthews Bus, and they seem to say that, you know, all the statistics are very new and they still have data they're compiling themselves.
Has there been purchases in New York of electric buses?
Not that I'm aware of, but there could be. I'm not
Okay.
sure. You know, I
All
know
right.
they're building
I
them,
don't
but
think
I
so.
don't know.
I just don't think the technology is
Yeah, it's
really
not-
there yet, and the
Sounds it.
support.
Yeah, it sounds
You
it.
know.
Kathy, this is Heather. I can also put you in touch with somebody at Central Hudson. We have been doing a lot of work on the electric vehicles, and they just may have some insights as well.
Great.
Okay,
Do
great.
you have electric vehicles, Heather?
Central Hudson does, not fully, but they do, and we have installed charging stations at all of our locations. So it is something that is gaining a lot of steam.
Sometimes we can learn from business. That's for
The
sure.
technology's there. I think it's just going to be a few years before the price point drops, you know, as it becomes more mainstream.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Regarding data and assessment. So we know we've been talking about some subgroups, I believe specifically the African-American population within our schools and levels of achievement. You know, I think it would behoove us to see some kind of end of the year report, even with our internal statistics. We want to know how that group is progressing throughout the K-12 continuum. If
Okay.
they had internal diagnostic assessments, where did they start? Where did they end? Because this is a group we know we need to improve on and show growth for. So I'd like to end the year with some dialogue about that. I think it's a very important topic. All right. And I think the last thing I had, Maria, for food services, are we still supporting community at this time, community need, or is it student need only?
It's student need only. We have our Wednesday distribution. We've been hovering around 330 to 350 students each Wednesday.
Thank you. Okay. And then the last question I had was for facilities. I'm just curious how the covering of the media center is going. Any updates on that?
I don't currently have an update on where we're going with the furnishings and things like that.
No. I'm more like the roof. Is
It means the
rolled
roof.
up?
The roof is, they're ordering the material at this point in time. We don't know when that's going to be scheduled to be done. That's based on when the material is going to come.
Okay. Thank you.
One question for Mr. Miller. I noticed in your report that a number of our new univents at the elementary school are having issues. Is the manufacturer open to an extended warranty on those units, or that's something we haven't fully pursued?
I asked that question at the meeting as to open that up. They haven't responded to me. Colony is coming down to go through all the univents and make sure all the set screws and everything are tight. Where we had issues with shafts that were rattling and squirrel cages that were loose. And we're going to do a survey in parallel to them, and then probably have a further discussion on what the future yields with warranty on that, if we can possibly attain anything additional to help us in the future.
Okay, yeah, I think that's something important to stay on top of with them. All right, anyone else have any comments? Okay, thank you to all our directors. Moving on, approval of Committee on Special Education minutes. Be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby accepts the recommendations of the CPSE and CSE committees according to the information provided in regard to meetings and classified status of students. Meeting date range February 4th, 2021 to March 9th, 2021. All meetings were held virtually on Zoom platforms, a total of 7. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Tom, second by Camille. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? So carried, 7-0. Under personnel, any objection to taking personnel as a block from A to E? Good with that? And thumb up? Okay, we'll move personnel as a block from A through E, and we'll recognize any new hires through the superintendent. Can I have a motion to move? Motion by Heather, second by Tom. Discussion?
Just wanted to thank the retiree. I'm sure we will, but there is a retirement there.
Yes. Anyone else? All those in favor? Opposed? So carried, 7-0. Mr. Bon Jovi, do we have any?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Barone. Yes, I want to reiterate, Mr. Bakatsias, I do want to thank Sharon Tambori. She is retiring after 12 and a half years. She is in transportation and really has been an invaluable member of that team. So I do want to thank her for all her service to the district, and we wish her all the best. I know I do have a few of our hires here. So Lori, if you could just come on and introduce yourself and tell the board what building and what position you're in.
Hi, my name is Lori Upright, and I'll be at the high school. I'm the new cook there. And I wanted to thank you for this wonderful opportunity. I look forward to working with Maria and providing the students with a delicious and nutritious menu with lots of options for all the students.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then Lori P.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Bon Jovi. I'm Lori Palesci. I've been a member of the Highland community for 22 years, had my 4 children go through the 3 schools. And now I'm honored and excited to be part of the high school staff as a teacher aide.
Great, thank you, Lori. Welcome.
Thank you.
And then I'm not sure if Joe Galm, I think he was on earlier. I'm not sure if he's still on. Is Joe on?
No, he is not, but.
Okay, no problem. But again, welcome to Joe and Beverly, both bus drivers. So that's all, Mr. Barone.
Thank you. And again, welcome aboard to our new hires, and I'm sure you're going to be a benefit to the Highland Central School District. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Farah and Jake. Farah, I know you're still here. Or do you have anything to report in regards to all 3 buildings?
Not so much. Reflecting on what I said earlier about how students are feeling with the reopening plan, I feel like we just share that feeling of anxiety and how things are going to turn out. We just wish there were more communication with adult teachers in the building just to get our voices out there, because there has been a common thread that students are kind of apprehensive about phasing into the building. We're just really scared at this time, this moment in time.
Point well taken.
Mr. Barone, student rep Jake Duncan had a little family emergency, so he is not in attendance. He apologizes.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Farah? Okay, under business and operations, budget transfers. Be it resolved, the Board of Education, upon a recommendation of the superintendent, approves the following budget transfer for the 2020-2021 school year as presented to the board at this meeting. Budget transfer number 6372/6467 for a total of $331,462. The purpose is the transfer for CARE Act ESSER grant. Budget transfer 6369 for a total of $56,177. That's for budget purpose for transfer for CARE Act, the Greer grant. Budget transfer number 6372, an amount $87,639. Purpose to account for Greer and Esser, and budget transfer 6742 for $10,000 for legal fees. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Sue, second by Heather. Discussion? All those in favor?
Sorry.
Opposed?
I'm sorry, Don. Is that to cure the negative unencumbered, those budget transfers?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think I just said all those in favor, and we got a hand and none opposed, so it's a 7-0 carry. Revenue transfer be resolved, the Board of Education, upon a recommendation of the superintendent, approves the following revenue transfers for the 2020-2021 school year as presented to the board at this meeting. Budget transfer 6372, amount $387,639. The purpose to account for Bureau and ESSER accounts or grants. Motion, please. Motion by Mike, second by Sue. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried 7-0. Budget discussion. Don Gottlieb, you're up.
Thank you.
Yep, I will get that. I'm sorry. Let me just,
Not yet.
okay, that's fine. Go ahead. I gotta just pull it up.
Okay, since the last meeting, I've had a number of discussions with Lisa Gillick to find out what her thinking was in terms of developing the budget. As a result of those discussions, I increased the budget by $15,000 to cover the high school graduation issue that was brought up at the last meeting. The rates for the HMOs for health insurance came in lower than were originally estimated in the budget. So I've decreased that line by $100,000. There is a potential increase, that should be increase, not decrease, for salary, depending upon your discussions in the executive session. On the revenue side, we're basically treading water for about another week and a half. We expect the state aid or the state budget will be adopted prior to April the 1st. I'm kind of hoping it'll be next week. We're hoping that we get more revenue than what is initially planned for. The second item is the COVID relief bill. We don't know exactly what is going on in terms of the immediate impact or the direct impact on local governments. I've received a figure from a friend of mine that it looks like the Highland District might be eligible for in excess of $1 million with that particular bill. However, we don't know at this point whether that would be coming directly to the district, whether it would be flowing through the state ed department, or whether the state ed or the government would be using that as an offset like they did with the CARE Act. In other words, we got the CARE money, but they took it away from state aid. So we don't know what's going to happen with that, but that would all help to eliminate the potential deficit that we have right now. So right at the moment, I'm suggesting that we kind of tread water. Now, last week or 2 weeks ago, there was discussion about the use of the debt service fund and the fund balance. over this period of time, I've had some discussions with Mr. Bon Jovi. And as you're probably aware, I've done several interims up in the Ontiora district. So I am very well acquainted with Mrs. McLaren. Based on the discussions I've had with Tom, I have reached out to Victoria and invited her to come down and begin to meet with the district and to get to know the people and to begin to work her way in. This morning, we had an opportunity to have a Zoom meeting with our financial advisors. So she was able to participate in that Zoom meeting in which we were discussing bonding, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But as a part of that discussion, we talked about the use of the debt service fund and the fund balance. And it's got to be, the board is correct in wanting to use it. However, it has to be used judiciously, because if you throw a big amount in 1 year, that's going to impact your tax cap. And if you impact your tax cap in year 1, that's going to affect year 2, year 3, year 4. So the use of that money has got to be done very carefully. So what I asked the Donegan people to do is to prepare for Victoria some kind of a reasonable plan which will be shared with the board as to how to utilize the debt service fund as it currently exists and how we anticipate, as a result of the $17 million issue, how it might look, in a couple of months. And I've also asked them to look at the fund balance and kind of plan that out, how we should utilize that so that we stay in conformance with the state guidelines and what have you. So at this point in time, we still have another 2 weeks before we have to adopt the budget. It's my recommendation that we kind of tread water and not make any cuts or do anything until we get all the information. And hopefully we will have more reasonable information by the next board meeting. Any questions on the budget?
I got a couple, Don. In looking at the bonding options, are they coming with one recommendation, or are they going to come with a few options for us?
Well, can you hold that mic and let me get to that in a minute?
Sure.
Let's just do the budget at the moment.
I got you.
But I want to talk about that. Was there any questions on the budget itself? Okay, there is another item that is going to impact the budget, and that's pilot agreements. The district currently has 3 pilot agreements for next fiscal year. This year you had 2. One of the pilots, and it's the biggest one, has not reimbursed the district for the amount of money that they owe us for this year. And that's about $28,000. They also, at this point, have not paid the bill to the county or to the town for their portion of the pilot. It appears that they will be dropped from the pilot program by the IDA. If that happens, the amount of revenue that we would receive from pilots would reduce, but offsetting that, our tax levy or tax cap would increase. That wouldn't increase the tax rate with the potential tax rate because the property currently is not on the tax rolls. It would come back on the tax rolls and we would get the full amount through the tax program. Unfortunately, because a pilot is not a tax, it's not an unpaid thing that we can turn over to the county. As you're aware, in November, all of the unpaid taxes are turned over to the county. And by the end of March, the county is required to make the district whole, plus interest penalties. But because this is technically not a property tax, it looks like we're going to be out the 28,000 for this year. I will be having some discussions with the county because our only option is to sue for the unpaid balance. My initial feeling is that if we were to do this on our own, the cost of this lawsuit would probably exceed the revenues that we would get. And yet I hate to let somebody off scot-free. So I'm in discussions with the county to see whether it's possible that they might put together, us, the town, and the school district, and jointly go after the individual.
Well, do we have the option to put a lien on the property?
That is something that I will talk about with the attorney. I think we would.
Please do.
What the lien would do would basically tie up the property so that they couldn't, do anything with it. And
Yes,
I had
that's exactly what I want.
Yeah.
It may cost lower than a lawsuit.
Yes. And that's one of the options that I'll be looking at. Thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions on that? Okay, then the third thing I wanted to talk about, at the last meeting, the bond projection for the bus proposition and the O&M was presented combined. And I think, Mrs. Gilmore, you asked to have it separated. And I got those sheets this morning. So Lisa, did the board get those?
On the screen now, Don. Yep.
Oh, they got the two, one with the buses and one, this one and the next one. I think that's what you were looking for, Mrs.
Yep.
Gilmore. Okay. Then
Okay, so there's 3 sheets here.
just not this one. It's the
Okay,
other
go to
one.
the next one.
Yeah.
Let me know when to.
Okay, this is the one with the operation and maintenance equipment, the 359,000. So you can see what the local share would be on a 5-year bond. And then the next sheet would be the buses. And you could see what the local share would be on the 5-year bond. Okay.
With the equipment, there's no local share.
No, there is.
Can we go up one? I didn't see anything in that column, I don't think.
Go up one. Yeah, it's this column. Local shares all the way over on the right.
Oh, my apologies. No state aid on those equipment purchases?
No.
That's what I meant. All right, thanks.
The buses would be aided under transportation aid. The equipment would not be. So that would not generate any of the earmarked aids.
So we'll see a bigger impact in 22, 23 rather than this year. This year will be negligible.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But what the Donegan people have tried to do is to take all of the bonds together and kind of level out what your principal and interest expense will be over a multi-year period.
And these rates are still good, Don, right? I mean, these are low rates.
Well, he used a 3% estimate. The rates are coming in a little bit lower. And if you go back up to the first one, Lisa, the first page.
Yeah, okay.
That's really part of the bond discussion. Basically, with the $8 million project, the board has 3 options. Currently, we're financing, we're paying the contractors based on a note. We could re-up the note in June for 1 year, or we could bond it through public market. That is, the district could float the bonds themselves, or we could go through a state pool, which is called DASNY, which is the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, where they accumulate bond things from all districts in towns and villages across the state, and then they create a pool. For some people, depending upon the aid ratio, DASNY is the better way to go. For other districts where you're looking at different aid ratios and different things, the public market is the better way to go. And if you look at the printout for the two rates, or the two options, it's obvious that the public market is the best option for the district. Now, he ran the scenario with the public market at 1.85, 2.10, and 2.35. Currently, the rates, I think he said they were around 1.7 to 1.75. They are expecting, as we look out into the future, that the rates will start to creep up. And I think there's a couple of things that are going to impact that. One, there's the potential risk of inflation due to the Recovery Act that was created. Also, there is talk of some kind of an infrastructure bill. If there's an infrastructure bill, that's a lot of building, which means there's going to be a lot of pressure on the market to do a lot of bonding. A lot of pressure will drive up the rates. So it's better for us, I think, for the taxpayers to get in as early as possible, because the probability is that we'll come in somewhere under the 1.85. Now, if we go the public market, they are planning on issuing bonds or having the sale somewhere in the first week of June, so that we can finish it up and have everything done to pay the note off at the end of June and have the money change hands appropriately. If you want to go with the DASNY option, then we have to begin putting paperwork in place by the end of this week, which would be a cost to the Donegans for preparing the paperwork. We can pull out of it. So in other words, if you're so inclined, we could make a decision tonight to go to the public market. If you really feel more comfortable waiting 2 weeks, that's okay, but there would be a little bit of a cost for preparing the paperwork to keep us active with the potential of coming in on the DASNY market. Questions?
Do we have a scope of work? I don't know if we're, like, do we know what we want to do?
No, Sue, this is for the current $8 million project.
This is the current.
Oh, geez, I'm sorry. I thought this was for new money. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. This is the current, the 17 million was bonded. That's already done. The $8 million project, all you have is a bond note.
Right.
It has not been bonded. So the question now is the time to bond. I anticipate, based on the discussions I've had with Pete Miller, and we had a construction meeting the other day, I'm pretty sure that we can close out the elementary school and the middle school before July 1st. The high school, the issue is going to be whether we can get the roof done, inspected, and signed off on prior to the June. Mr. Bon Jovi seemed to indicate he thought that was possible. If that's possible, then the aid will start flowing immediately next year, and we'll get a year and a half's aid in next year's activity. So it's time to bond it.
Oh, agree. Yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, I mean, Bernie Donegan was pretty clear. I know normally we would, probably call a meeting of the audit committee and have them take a look at this, but, we're looking at, it's a committee of the whole board tonight. So, you know, they recommended going with the public market so that we didn't waste, you know, not waste money, but spend money, kind of keeping the DASNY active, since the public market seems to be the clear way to go.
Absolutely.
So we just need if we get direction from the board, we can tell them tomorrow, yes, move forward with the public market and let's get this thing rolling.
Do we need a resolution or just a consensus?
I mean, we could do a resolution, that's fine. We could just do one now.
Sure.
This
The
is-
board ready to move forward with bonding through the public market?
I support that.
Me too.
In favor, yep.
Okay.
Me too.
We'll do a quick resolution. Be it resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approves moving the bonding for our $8 million capital project through the public market. Good enough?
Yes.
Motion to accept. Got a motion made by Mike, and I can't see who else is.
Heather?
Heather, Mike and Heather. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 7-0. I would ask our superintendent to call another support service meeting as soon as possible so we can push our design and management team to try to close out these projects as quickly as possible. Here it is, almost April, and we're nowhere near closing out, and these projects were supposed to be done back in September. So I think we need to move at least on the elementary school and the middle school and get it closed out before June so we can get it up to state education and close these out. And also from our previous support service meetings, we are under the impression that our high school project with the roof and whatever else was going to be completed prior to June. So if what I'm hearing from Mr. Miller, that the material was recently ordered, and I know where material is nowadays, it might not even happen until after June. And that's unfortunate because I think our assurances from our management team and design team several months ago was that it was going to take place over the spring break possibly. And that doesn't look like it's going to happen.
I do just want to comment, I'm really happy with the fresh look and the curb appeal of the high school. You know, we had improved the middle school curb appeal and the elementary school curb appeal, I thought, in the last project. But seeing the high school come together and get, you know, all those parking lots up to speed, very exciting. I think it looks great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Al, that was, your last comment there was a little disturbing because we did give a directive quite a while ago, maybe upwards of almost a month ago for that to happen. And I'm not really sure what recently, you know, the order, you know, meant, whether it was within the last week, yesterday, today, or 3 weeks ago. Do we know that?
No, we don't. Not at this point.
Yeah, I don't know if Pete Miller knows that.
They gave all indication that it was going to happen like almost immediately. Once we picked out, we had to visit there and we picked out, you know, the color of the roof, that sort of thing. So dropping the ball again, I guess. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, just a quick comment on the previous information that was shown on the screen. And just want to kind of keep in mind the potential to look for in the future a reserve of some sort potentially for the O&M equipment. Just looking at that screen, I know we've talked back and forth, you know, agreed that it would have to be, you know, money that is reserved every year, and then we would need voter approval to use it. But just from looking at that screen, there is, you know, it looks like on there was around $40,000 of interest that will be incurred on that money. So I think it is just a better use if we can plan ahead to say, you know, on a routine schedule, we're going to need O&M equipment. There is not state aid on that. So to be able to plan for that in advance so that we can save on that interest instead of incurring it.
Yeah, I would think as you get to the end of the year and you look at your fund balance, you may want to look at different types of reserves.
Right.
You know,
and I think, yeah, I think we've done a good job at it. I think that's one that, you know, I definitely am interested in looking into potentially.
and I'll mention that to Mrs. McLaren, so she's aware of it.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I believe, Heather, that we did, have that discussion in regards to a reserve for that equipment where it would need voter approval to establish the reserve, and then it would need voter approval to spend the
use it.
reserve. And I think we looked at it that, what share, what portion of the pie would you put into that reserve, and what type of plan you would have moving forward for replacement. So it is a good practice probably to think in that direction and establish maybe a 5-year plan where you're going to replace equipment, whatever.
Yep.
We just kind of thought that this would be the best avenue now because
Right.
the cost would be spread out over the 5 years. I think that's
Yeah, no, and I 100% agree that that's what makes sense now, but I think knowing that looking forward just for financial stability, knowing that that's going to be needed, at some point, that, just a plan for it in the future.
Understood. Does anybody have anything else for Dr. Gottlieb in regards to the budget? And that we're gonna sit tight until our next meeting and hopefully have some answers from the state.
I have one last question.
Sure.
It's regarding foundation aid. I heard that the conversation around restoring foundation aid is gaining some steam. Just wanted, I was just curious if Mr. Gottlieb had heard anything about that and what's the likelihood that that could potentially be another funding source.
At this time of the year, you hear a lot of discussion about a lot of different things. And what happens is 2 men and 1 woman get together in a room and they make a decision what's going to happen. And on that day, we'll find out what the aid will be. And what they will do is they will drive money to the districts that they want to drive money to.
I thought it was too good to be true. And
if we happen to fit the profile that they're looking at, then we're going to come out as a winner. And if not,
Thank you, Mr. Gottlieb.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
When is our next meeting and when do we have to have the budget resolution by?
Our next meeting is Wednesday, April 7th.
And we have until, I believe, the 19th.
19th, I believe it is, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So
Thank
we
you.
can add a meeting before the 19th.
We have to, Heather. We've done that in the past.
It's a good chunk of time, yes.
Yep, very good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, there's no other questions for Dr. Gottlieb. We'll move on to Sarah's report.
Okay, I'm going to make this very quick. I know we say this almost every meeting, but it bears repeating. It's very important. Thank you to all of our nurses and health office staff. Again, they continue to do tremendous work with all the contact tracing and phone calls and everything that has to be done. We can't appreciate them enough for the work that they do. Just anecdotally, we had an email from a parent who had talked to one of the county contact tracers, and there was a little discrepancy between our date and the date the contact tracer was giving for the quarantine. And the parent asked which one they should use, and the contact tracer said, go with the school. They have more authority than us. So, I mean, they have a lot of responsibility on them on a daily basis to make these decisions, and they're really handling it with a lot of patience and a lot of grace. So we really appreciate that. Only one other thing, and Joel did steal my thunder a little bit, but I have a few things to add about state assessments. First of all, New York State has submitted a waiver request to the federal government to waive all required assessments, which would be 3 through 8, math, ELA, science, and then the 3 required tests at the high school. That waiver is still active, although the federal government has made kind of a blanket statement saying that they weren't going to waive any of these tests. New York State, NYSED continues to, I guess, have hope that that's going to change. In the meantime, the Board of Regents did meet yesterday and today, and they did make decisions about what they have control over at the moment. As Joel mentioned, 3 through 8 testing will only be 1 day this year instead of 2 for ELA and math. And for the 4th grade and 8th grade science exam, it will just be the written portion rather than the kind of the practical or performance-based part of that. As far as Regents exams, it's pretty much what I had said the last couple of times we talked about this. We will have to administer, unless the grant or the waiver is granted, 4 Regents exams. That's Algebra 1, ELA, which is typically 11th grade, biology or living environment, and earth science. You have to give 1 science, 1 math, and 1 ELA in the 4 years. Or students have to take 1 in their 4 years of school. So those are required. We will not be administering the global, US, geometry, algebra 2, chemistry, or physics Regents examinations. Regents scores for a 2nd year in a row will not be tied to graduation requirements. So even if a student is taking Algebra 1, the score on that Regents exam will not impact their ability to graduate from high school. Normally, 1 math is required, 1 ELA, 1 science, and 2 social studies are required for graduation. So all those requirements are waived. And there will be no August 2021 Regents exams. Normally there's a administration in August, an administration in January, and then in June. Because there's no requirement, the exams in August are usually for students who maybe missed one to graduate or didn't pass one in June. They have the opportunity to take it again in August so that they can have that requirement done. But since there is no requirement for that anymore, or this year, they will not be giving those August Regents exams. So that's all I have for this evening. Any questions?
I thought I read that the Regents were totally canceled, but apparently I misunderstood. So it's just, they don't count for graduation. So
yes, and so they've canceled 6 of them, but until the federal government grants the New York State waiver, they can't cancel those other 4 because those are federally required, and that's tied to. If the waiver, if the federal government grants that waiver, then pretty much all assessment will be canceled, including 3 through 8 ELA, math, and science. But like I said, the federal government said about a month ago that they would not be granting waivers. So I don't know. I don't know if New York State has an inside connection that they think that hope is still alive for that or not. But so as of right now, the 3 through 8 ELA and math have been shortened to only 1 day. Science is only 1 portion for 4th grade and 8th grade, and then the 4 Regents exams in high school.
Wow, so confusing.
Big change. Yeah, and yeah, it is. We'll see what next year brings.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Sarah? Thank you, Sarah. Superintendent Bonjovi?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Barone. Again, I do want to thank the Board of Ed for your guidance tonight. I'm looking forward to implementing our plans moving forward for the return to school. Big thanks to Dr. Gottlieb He's really been a lifesaver once again. And we appreciate having him here. And you never know, he might be back in some capacity at some other time. He's just amazing. He is the Superman of business office. So thanks again to Don. I do want to, just got this hot off the press. Want to share wonderful news that 2 of our high school seniors, Luke Munson and William Mayer, achieved the rank of Eagle Scout tonight. So congratulations to both of those gentlemen. They are a testament to their student body, and really they are people to be looked up to. So congratulations for our Eagle Scouts.
Mr. Bon Jovi, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just got an email that there were actually 3.
3.
In addition, Patrick Leonard also received his.
Thank you. What? Okay.
Congratulations to all 3.
All 3. That's incredible. Thank you, Mr. Zimmer. Just a reminder, I know this has not been an issue for Highland, but it has for, I know that it has been a sticking point for some parents with the sports now, that you can only have 2 fans per student on a team. So this is not necessarily just Section 9. This came down from New York State Department of Health. So this is the whole state. So you can only the home team can have fans, and you can only have 2 fans per athlete. So it has come up that not Highland, but another school, their fans drove pretty far to another school, and then they, weren't allowed in, but that's the rules everywhere. Or in some cases, they were allowed in and they're not enforcing it. So it depends on the layout of the school also, obviously, if you're kind of not on the school grounds, but you're looking, it's going to be tough to stop you. But when we're talking about fans, we're really kind of fans entering the arena of wherever you are in that outside space. Okay, so if we can just remember to please try abide by that 2-fan rule, I would appreciate it. And again, one more time, just to reiterate what's been said twice already. Parents and guardians, we need your help. We do have a break coming up. And I know that everyone is chomping at the bit to get together, but please, in all of our gatherings, please make sure we are maintaining all social distance and COVID rules outside of the school setting. And that's all I have, Mr. Brown.
Any questions for our superintendent? Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Under new business, under Board of Education new business, just a reminder that school board candidate nominating petitions are due in shortly. Lisa Cerniglia, would you just give the dates out there for when those petitions have to be due back?
Yes, they would have to be returned to the district office by 5 p.m. I will be there on Monday, April 19th. For anybody that's interested, you can contact me at my email, lcerniglia@highland-k12.org. It's on the website, to request for a petition. However, it has to be returned in its original format. So it would have to be dropped off or mailed. And again, that deadline is April 19th, which is a Monday by 5 p.m.
Thank you. And our, as we stand right now, the budget vote is still going to happen in May, not like how we had it last year with absentee ballots. They're going to be in-person voting, and of course, those that request absentee ballots will be sent to them.
That is correct. We will probably be getting another final word within the next couple of weeks. So for our next meeting, which would be that Wednesday, April 7th, I will have more information, but at this point, it'll be done by the traditional Scantron machines.
Okay. Our Second reading for our education policies. Be it resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approves the following Highland Central School District policies as presented to the board at this meeting. Second reading for policy 3220, policy 3230, policy 3420, 7400, 7400 revised, 7450, 7511, 7512, 7513, 7514, and 7515, 7530, and finally 7550. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Sue, second by Mike. Discussion?
Just a question on the one policy, the non-discrimination 3420. I believe that there was in there, we need to include the civil rights compliance officer. So just wanted to make sure we were going to do that before it was finalized.
Sarah will make note of
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah, we'll make sure that's in there.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried 7-0. You got some information regarding the Mid-Hudson School Study Council Awards. It's just an FYI. And the final under new business is an agreement with Mobile Life Support Services in the Highland Central School District. Be it resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approves the attached agreement between Mobile Life Support Service and the Highland Central School District for the purpose of Mobile Life Support Service to provide standby paramedic ambulance services to the Highland Central School District during all football games for the 2021-2022 season as noted attached. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Sue, second by Tom. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried 7-0. Anyone have any old business or anything for the good and welfare of the district?
Yeah, now that we're bringing our students back to school, more students back to school full time, I think we really should entertain as a board to start having our meetings live in school again.
I think we can arrange to have that done.
Lead by example.
Okay, Lisa, we're going to open it up to public comment. If you have any emails.
Yes, I do actually have one email I like to read out loud.
Sure.
This is from Leah Weaver. She's a third grade teacher that teaches remotely. She says, thank you to the Board of Education and district leadership for the careful consideration shown throughout the school year regarding the safety and the developmental needs of students at the elementary school. I would like to remind the leaders present tonight that there is a very lively and vibrant online learning community in the elementary school, and I ask you to consider ways that the remote students can visit or participate in school life during May and June. Most remote students have not been in the school for an entire year, and they need a bridge to support their return to school in the fall of 2021. This might be something that could happen on Wednesdays when other students are online and offered to families on a voluntary basis. This is only one suggestion among several possibilities, and the need is great for supporting these young learners. So please work together and solicit input from teachers and parents about what might be possible. Thank you. And that is all I have.
Okay, I'm sure that can be discussed within the administrative team. Mr. Bon Jovi, you'll take a look at that.
Yes, I will.
See what our elementary school and can do with that. That's all you have, Lisa, at this point? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, if there's nothing else for the good and welfare of the district, Mr. Miller will take that into consideration for our next board meeting to be a live board meeting. I'm sure we can arrange that as long as nothing has changed with with our protocols at that point in time, I think we can make that happen. So if there's nothing else for good and welfare of the district, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Tom, second by Mike. All those in favor? Opposed? So carried. I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. I think it was a tough decision for the board to make, but I'm hopeful that it's in the best interest of all our students and staff moving forward. Thank you. And just want to wish everyone relaxing break coming up at the end of the month and enjoy the spring break. And hopefully the weather will change and we can look forward to some warm days and have our students outside on the playground and having lunch outside. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy.
Yeah. And happy St. Patrick's Day. Everybody's Irish on St. Patrick's Day.
Everybody. There he is. Thank you, Mr. Zimmer. All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.